The rain hammered against the windows of our Chicago apartment, mirroring the storm brewing inside me. For 20 years, Alaric, a 46-year-old IT specialist, had built a life with my wife, Bronte. We weren't perfect, but we were us. Or so I thought. Lately, though, Bronte had been distant, her laughter strained, her eyes avoiding mine. Late nights at the office, she claimed, a new project demanding her attention as a marketing executive. I wanted to believe her, I truly did, but a gnawing unease had taken root in my gut. It started subtly, a perfume I didn't recognize clinging to her clothes, a new, almost nervous energy about her. Then came the phone calls, hushed whispers late at night, the screen always facing down when I entered the room. I tried to brush it off, telling myself I was being paranoid, that my imagination was running wild. After all, Bronte was my rock, my confidant, the woman I trusted above all others. But the feeling persisted, growing stronger with each passing day. One Tuesday, Bronte told me she had a conference in Denver, a 3-day affair that she insisted was crucial for her career. I offered to drive her to the airport, but she declined, saying a colleague was picking her up. That should have been my first red flag, but I ignored it, chalking it up to her desire to avoid the early morning rush. The next morning, I was working from home, troubleshooting a server issue when my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. "Bronte looks beautiful in Denver, wish you were here." Attached was a photo, my breath hitched. It was Bronte, all right, but she wasn't at a conference. She was sitting at a restaurant table, laughing, her hand resting on the arm of a man I didn't recognize. His face was partially obscured, but I could see enough to know it wasn't a colleague. It was a stranger, a man who looked at her with an intimacy that chilled me to the bone. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat of denial and disbelief. I stared at the photo, my mind struggling to process what I was seeing. Bronte, my Bronte with another man. It couldn't be true. There had to be an explanation, a mistake, anything to negate the image seared into my brain. I tried calling her, but her phone went straight to voicemail. I tried again and again, each attempt met with the same cold, impersonal response. Panic began to set in. I felt like I was drowning, gasping for air in a sea of betrayal. I spent the rest of the day in a daze, pacing the apartment, replaying every moment of the past few weeks, searching for clues I had missed, signs I had ignored. Each memory, once a source of comfort, now felt tainted, poisoned by the realization that the woman I loved had been lying to me, deceiving me all along. That evening, I couldn't bring myself to cook. The thought of food turned my stomach. I just sat on the couch, staring blankly at the television, the flickering images a meaningless blur. Sleep offered no escape. I tossed and turned, haunted by the photo, by the image of Bronte with another man. When I finally drifted off, I was plagued by nightmares, twisted fantasies of her betrayal, of her laughter echoing in the empty spaces of our home. The next morning, I decided I couldn't wait any longer. I needed answers, I needed to confront her, to hear her explanation, however implausible it might be. I booked a flight to Denver, determined to find her, to force her to face the truth. The flight was a blur of anxiety and anticipation. I replayed the photo in my mind, dissecting every detail, searching for any hint of regret or remorse in Bronte's expression. But there was nothing, only laughter, only joy, only the undeniable presence of another man. When I arrived in Denver, I went straight to the restaurant in the photo. It was a trendy bistro in the heart of downtown, the kind of place Bronte loved. I showed the photo to the hostess, a young woman with bright eyes and a friendly smile. "Have you seen this woman?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. "She was here yesterday." The hostess studied the photo, her smile fading slightly. "I think so," she said. "I remember seeing her with a gentleman. They seemed very happy. Do you know where they went?" I pressed, my heart pounding in my chest. The hostess hesitated, then shook her head. "I'm sorry, sir," she said. "I don't." I thanked her and left the restaurant, feeling defeated and alone. I wandered the streets of Denver, aimlessly searching for any sign of Bronte, any clue that would lead me to her. I felt like a detective in a bad movie, a desperate husband chasing a phantom. Finally, after hours of fruitless searching, I decided to check into a hotel. I needed to regroup, to think clearly, to come up with a plan. As I sat in my hotel room, staring out the window at the city lights, I received another text message from the unknown number. "She's at the St. Regis," it read. "Room 302. My blood ran cold. The St. Regis was one of the most luxurious hotels in Denver, a place Bronte had always dreamed of staying. I knew then that this wasn't just a casual fling. This was something more, something deeper, something that threatened to shatter everything I had built. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I was about to do. I hailed a taxi and headed to the St. Regis, my mind racing, my heart pounding, my hands clammy with sweat. When I arrived at the hotel, I walked straight to the front desk. "I need to see Bronte in room 302, I said, my voice firm, my eyes locked on the clerk's. The clerk hesitated, then typed something into his computer. "I'm sorry, sir," he said. "I can't give out that information." "I'm her husband," I said, my voice rising slightly. "I know she's here. I need to see her." The clerk looked at me, his expression unreadable. "I'll see what I can do," he said, picking up the phone. He spoke briefly, then hung up. "Please wait here," he said. A few minutes later, a woman in a crisp uniform appeared. "Please come with me," she said, leading me to an elevator. We rode in silence to the third floor. The woman stopped in front of room 302 and knocked. The door opened, and there she was, Bronte. Her eyes widened in shock, her face paling as she took in my presence. "Alaric," she stammered, "what are you doing here?" "I think I should be asking you that question," I said, my voice cold, my eyes burning into hers. Behind her I saw him, the man from the photo. He was standing in the middle of the room, shirtless, his eyes wide with alarm. "Who is this?" he asked, his voice trembling. "This is my husband," Bronte said, her voice barely a whisper. The man's face turned ashen. "Your husband," he repeated, his eyes darting between Bronte and me. "There's been a misunderstanding," Bronte said, her voice rising slightly. "Alaric, please let me explain." "Explain," I said, my voice laced with sarcasm. "What's there to explain? I saw the photo, Bronte. I know what's going on." "It's not what you think," she pleaded, her eyes filling with tears. "Yes, it is," I said, my voice unwavering. "It's exactly what I think. You're having an affair, Bronte. You're betraying me." The man stepped forward, his hands raised in a gesture of peace. "Look, I didn't know she was married," he said. "I swear." "Shut up, Quentin," Bronte snapped, her face flushed with anger. "Quentin, so that was his name." I turned my attention back to Bronte, my heart aching with a pain I had never known. "How could you do this to me?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "How could you betray me like this?" "I don't know," she said, her tears flowing freely. I don't know." "Get out," I said, my voice cold and hard. "Both of you, get out of my life." Bronte and Quentin stared at me, their faces a mixture of shock and disbelief. "Alaric, please," Bronte begged, "don't do this." "I'm not doing anything," I said. "You did this, Bronte. You destroyed our marriage. You destroyed our life. Now get out." Bronte and Quentin slowly gathered their belongings, their movements hesitant, their eyes filled with shame. As they walked out the door, I felt a strange sense of detachment, as if I were watching a movie, a tragedy unfolding before my eyes. When they were gone, I sank to the floor, my body racked with sobs. 20 years. 20 years of love, of laughter, of shared dreams, all gone, all destroyed by one act of betrayal. I stayed in that hotel room for 3 days, drowning in my sorrow, replaying the events of the past few weeks, trying to make sense of what had happened. Finally, I realized that there was nothing left to salvage. Our marriage was over, our life together was finished. I booked a flight back to Chicago, determined to start over, to rebuild my life, to find happiness again, even if it meant doing it alone. When I returned to our apartment, I found it empty. Bronte had packed her things and left, leaving behind only a note. "I'm sorry," it read. "I never meant to hurt you." I crumpled the note in my hand and threw it in the trash. Her apology meant nothing. It couldn't undo the pain she had caused, the damage she had done. I spent the next few weeks sorting through our belongings, dividing our assets, preparing for the inevitable divorce. It was a painful process, a constant reminder of what I had lost, but I refused to let it break me. I refused to let Bronte's betrayal define me. I was Alaric, and I was stronger than this. I deserved better than this. As the divorce proceedings dragged on, I learned more about Bronte's affair. Quentin was a wealthy businessman, a man who had swept her off her feet with his charm and his money. He had promised her a life of luxury, a life she couldn't resist. I felt a surge of anger, not just at Bronte, but at Quentin as well. He had knowingly broken up a marriage, destroyed a family, all for his own selfish desires. I wanted to confront him to make him pay for what he had done. But I knew that wouldn't solve anything. It wouldn't bring Bronte back. It wouldn't undo the pain. So I decided to take a different approach. I hired a private investigator to dig into Quentin's background, to uncover any secrets he might be hiding. It didn't take long to find dirt. Quentin was a serial philanderer, a man who had a long history of cheating on his wives and girlfriends. He was also involved in some shady business dealings, activities that could land him in serious trouble with the law. I gathered all the information I had and sent it to Quentin's wife, a woman named Isolde. I didn't expect anything to come of it, but I felt a sense of satisfaction knowing that Quentin's lies were about to be exposed. A few weeks later, I received a phone call from Isolde. She was furious, heartbroken, and determined to make Quentin pay for his betrayal. She thanked me for exposing his lies and promised to make his life a living hell. I wished her luck and hung up the phone, feeling a sense of closure. I had taken my revenge, not by confronting Quentin directly, but by letting his own actions destroy him. As for Bronte, I never spoke to her again. I filed for divorce and she didn't contest it. She moved to another city, started a new life with Quentin, and faded from my memory. I focused on rebuilding my own life, on finding happiness again. It wasn't easy, but I was determined to succeed. I threw myself into my work. I spent time with my friends and family. I pursued my hobbies. Slowly but surely, I began to heal. I realized that Bronte's betrayal was not a reflection of me, but a reflection of her own character. She was the one who had made the mistake. She was the one who had lost out on a lifetime of love and happiness. I, on the other hand, had learned a valuable lesson. I had learned that trust is a fragile thing, that betrayal can come from the most unexpected places, and that forgiveness is not always possible. But I had also learned that I was stronger than I thought, that I could survive even the most devastating heartbreak, and that I was capable of finding happiness again. Years passed and I eventually met someone new, a wonderful woman named Astrid who loved me for who I was, who appreciated my honesty and my loyalty. We built a new life together, a life filled with love, laughter, and mutual respect. I never forgot Bronte, but I no longer felt any anger or resentment towards her. I had moved on, I had found peace, and I had learned to love again. One day I received a letter from Bronte. It was a long, rambling apology, filled with regret and remorse. She admitted that she had made a mistake, that she had thrown away something precious for a fleeting moment of pleasure. She said that Quentin had turned out to be a monster, that he had abused her, both emotionally and physically, and that she had finally left him. She begged for my forgiveness, for a chance to make amends. I read the letter, my heart filled with a mixture of pity and indifference. I had no desire to rekindle our relationship, no desire to forgive her. She had made her choice, and she had to live with the consequences. I threw the letter in the trash and went back to my life with Astrid, a life filled with love and happiness, a life that Bronte would never be a part of. I had survived her betrayal, I had rebuilt my life, and I had found peace. And that was all that mattered. The rain has stopped in Chicago now, and the sun shines through the clouds as I sit here writing. It's been years since Bronte walked out of my life, and while the scars remain, they no longer ache. To anyone reading this who has experienced a similar betrayal, know that you are not alone. The pain is immense, but it does fade. Focus on yourself, rebuild your life, and remember that you deserve happiness. Don't let their actions define you. You are stronger than you think. Sign off.